I think I've recorded it. Hey, everybody, welcome. I think we're live right now, right? On
Yeah.
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, Natalie, great to have you here from her C-suite. And we're going to be talking about what are some of the things you should avoid when you start looking for boards. And I think this is corporate boards, but I think it can be applied to any kind of board, right?
Yeah, it can be. I think people make the same mistakes. This is all about how we can help people move forward. So, regardless of the type of board you want to be on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to kick off with the first one. And I think we talk about this a lot. I think a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, I've been struggling to get on a board for a while. And I think, can you take a look at my bio? Can you check it out and see what's wrong with it? And one of the first questions I ask is, oh, okay, how many people have received this in the last 6 months? And usually I get well, no one. Right. So I tend to say, I mean, the bio might not be great, but I don't think it's the bio that isn't working. So my first lesson, and I think we talk about this a lot, is don't focus on the paperwork initially. Avoid focusing on that too much.
Mhm.
You'll sit on it and procrastinate on a bio, and you'll rewrite it and everything for months. So that would be the first one. What do you think, Natalie?
I think the bio too is asking and sending it out for feedback too much. So it's the flip side. Like either you don't share it or you've shared it almost like a resume. And I think people get confused about the difference between a board bio and a resume. Let's talk a little bit about that because that is one area that people sometimes don't realize they are really not the same.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about when would we use a bio. So a bio is usually a one-page kind of narrative about who you are and what you have done that is relatable to boards. It shouldn't be too long. It's going to be wordy, so you have to think about your audience, who's going to sit and read this. Now, generally, and I have a sort of plan. You've got to have a wow opener, okay, right at the start, to make someone want to read on, right? Even some of the smartest people looking for board members don't have time to read through a whole bio. So if the first couple of sentences you haven't caught their attention, they're unlikely to read on. So it's a wow factor. Then you got to talk a little bit about your heaviest kind of relatable achievements as an executive. Then it should be all about boards. It should be what board experience you've had, what relatable experience you've had, Eddie. And then you should, again, if you've never been on a board, I say to people, think aspirationally about what you would do. So you could say something like, I'm qualified, or, Naomi is qualified to lead a boardroom discussion in ... Naomi's experience lends to serving on the following committees, ... right? So you got to kind of think aspirationally about what you would do. And then when are you going to use, and then, and finish off with values and something personal, like Naomi spends time in, Chicago at her home and enjoys doing this, right? Because board members, they want to get to know you a little bit. And so this document really is not the only thing you'll use. If I have a meeting with someone and I tell them about my board career and tell them about what I'm doing, that's great. I'm then going to send them a bio afterwards. Hey, if it's okay, can I send you my bio? Right? It's a nice leave behind. But if I approached you, Natalie, and I said, Natalie, there's a board position. It's an open board position. We think you would be a great fit. Can you send me something? I would not just send my bio. I would send the bio alongside an executive resume with a little addition of my boards and the board experience that I've had. So it's pretty much the same thing. It just a little bit of board language in there. So that's why a lot of people get sort of sidetracked on this bio. It's not something that goes before you've spoken to someone. It goes after. So moral of this story is, rather than focusing on the bio, focus on what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. That's probably more likely to get you a bit further down the road.
Yeah, and make sure that you're asking questions. We've heard this before, and one of our speakers came and said that someone didn't get a board role because she didn't ask any questions. So do not think that you shouldn't ask questions. When you have to be curious, and actually it's an attribute of board directors to have curiosity. So if in your conversation before you send your bio, you don't ask questions, then that can actually be marked against you as not interested, or you think you know everything and you don't need to learn anything. Don't you think?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. I think, for a lot of folks, they may, you've got to have these things prepared. I don't think you can walk into any meeting without preparing. And actually, the whole ethos of a board member, you have to be prepared before board meetings, right? So actually it sort of ties in with how you should be on a board anyway. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. That's excellent.
all right, number 2, what else should you avoid if you're getting onto a board, you're thinking about getting onto a board, what else should you avoid? Well, this is one of my the ones that I noticed after working with people for many years who are trying to get onto boards. And they would say to me, well, I'm doing everything I can. I'm talking to lots of people, but I'm just not getting anywhere. And at first I think, well, that's great that they're talking to lots of people. Surely that should create some opportunities. But then when I asked them, well, how are these conversations going? What it became clear to me was that they were in these meetings, instead of talking about who they are as a board member, describing their value proposition, and going into the detail of where they were going and what their plan was, instead they would come to these meetings and ask the other person, do you think I'm a good board, I'll be a good board member? Do you think I would be effective? What do you think I should do? And I've been thinking about these boards. What do you think? And then the final one, which is, I have a bio. Could you look over it for me? Okay. So none of these things, unfortunately, created a level of confidence in the other person as to where they're going. It's like turning up to do a skydive, and someone says, can someone show me how to put my parachute in the bag? Right? Do you know how to put the parachute? Do you think I'd be good at skydiving? I don't think you'd let that person skydive, right? So this isn't quite skydiving, but it's a pretty serious and pretty important role. And so if someone hears any level of doubt or I'm unsure, or I just don't have my stuff together, why am I going to go and refer this person, to some of the highest level people that I know, some of the most respected and influential people I know, if they're going to show up like that? So again, it's the same thing. You've got to come prepared. You've got to know how to put that parachute in the bag, or the backpack. I don't even know what it is. So that preparedness is essential. And there's a lot of things you need to prepare for. I don't know if we have time in this live to go through it all, but.
Well, one of the things, as you think about being prepared, and we talked about this in our board mastermind, about when you go to the interview, don't go and then put yourself together as you're getting out of the car, because you don't know who is in the parking lot, who's observing, right? And I know that I'm guilty of this because I don't drive with my high heels all the time. And so if I were to go, and arrive, I would not want someone seeing me like crouched down and like, I'm going to do this, So
I remember we talked about that. That's funny. Yeah. So again, I mean, I'm in Florida sometimes, and you can't always have your jacket on and be ready. Right. It's warm out, or you've got the different shoes on. I know a lot of people in New York City, we walk a lot, right? So again, you can't be walking in your best shoes. By the time you get to your interview, your shoes are destroyed, right? Where you've spent all your time making sure that they're clean. So there is a level of, you have to do these things. We all have to be ready for the moment. But you really have to think through, am I standing by my car putting my shoes on, or am I in my car putting my shoes on? There's a totally different look, right? So, being prepared. when it's an in-person, even on a Zoom, right? Make sure you've got no dogs and cats coming along and people knocking on the door and all kinds of things happening, just to make sure that things go smoothly. But yeah, I think asking people for help and not showing up in the right way is absolutely a sure way to really, it's almost like burning a bridge, right? So if I have a really good contact, let's say they're the CEO of a company and I know that they're very influential, I show up. This is what should happen. You show up, you say, hey, I've got this amazing plan. I'm going to be on a board this year. It's a private equity backed board in the mid cap to small cap market. I'm currently talking to operating partners of PE firms, and I'll send you my bio just so you have access to the. Wow, what a difference, right? Between that and the, hey, do you think I would, do you think I'd make a good board member? What do you think I should do? Right. So, and this is actually a good one. I'll share this with you all. I've seen this a little bit from clients that I've had, where they've gone to a meeting and someone almost tries to talk them out of being on a board, right? You've always got your neggies, right? Even if I said to you, hey, I'm going to run a marathon, they'd say, oh, don't run a marathon. Oh, I hurt my leg and I never did it again. You don't need to bother with that. There's always that person who will try and talk you out of something. And so what I say is there's always someone's going to talk you out of being on a board. You have to stay firm and strong to your plan. That's great information. No, I can totally understand why you had a bad experience on a board. I'm actually really looking forward to the intellectual challenge and I'm ready for some challenges ahead, right? Like, again, stay strong, stay firm. They might go, oh, okay, well, she's serious. Well, next time I hear of an opportunity, I'll definitely let her know. So it's it really impacts your ability to get those referrals and to get a result, right, from these meetings that you're having. So it's a big one. Don't ask people for help unless unless they're the sort of person that can give you help. I would go in with your plan. Yep.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Be prepared. That's be prepared. It's a motto that you can't go wrong with.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 3. This is, there actually are lots of these things, yes, but I've kind of just narrowed them down to the 3 biggies. And I'm sure that the third we're about to talk about can be applied to anyone, anywhere, and actually anything. Okay, so when you're trying to achieve a big goal in life, you can't just think about it and sit back and wait for it to happen, right? Everything is work. Everything that you've achieved in your life, anyone here listening, it is all categorically because you put some effort in and some work in, right? And nothing comes easy. Nothing good ever comes easy. So if you think getting on a board is easy, think twice. But if you're ready for the challenge, do not, this is the big avoid, sitting around waiting for something to land or something to happen. Okay. You have to take action. You have to have a plan and you got to execute your plan. So that would be the big one. Is anything else that you're doing? I'm sure there's a lot of things we could talk about, and we'll probably have a part 2 of this at some point. But my advice for anyone taking on a pretty significant challenge, like getting onto a board or advancing your career, it's really take action, but you've got to have that plan.
Absolutely. Without a plan, you're right. You just stay stagnant and are not moving forward. It's the only way to get to where you're going, to your destination, is to make the steps. Yep. And you have to do things in small increments, 3 things a day that take 10 minutes each. If you even just do that, I know that people feel overwhelmed and they think, oh, I can't get to it. Well, what if you just spent 10 minutes today doing one thing? Reach out to one person and tell that person you're planning to get on a board and use your board pitch. You'll be amazed at how that actually accelerates the result.
You made a really good point, right? So that's why it's really good to have an accountability partner. That's why it's really good to have a group alongside you that are kind of working toward the same goal. And I do encourage people to do that. I do encourage people to stick with others. And if you need advice, contact me, ask me any questions. I know there's a few people listening here who are people I've worked with as well. So, think through how can I stay focused? And you're right. It's little things over a period of time versus lots of big things. Let's actually walk through, though, the sort of the 5 points that are really important. And I know we do a lot of programs that are 5 hours, 5 points, 5 areas. And the first one is really knowing what board you want to join. So really understanding your fit, what boards are out there that are going to fit in line with what you do. The second thing is really understanding the roles and responsibilities of those boards. Don't forget, a private equity backed board has, I would say, pretty a different motivation and environment than perhaps a publicly traded company board. So you can't really be saying I want to do both, because they're different. It's a different strategy. So choose one, choose a line, choose something that is achievable too. The third step is your value proposition. What do you bring to these boards? Can you say it? A lot of people in their minds, they think they know what their value proposition is, but the minute they say it, it all falls apart. And they start to sound, again, like an executive, I'll do this and I'll do that. I get stuff done, right? And really that's not board. That's not of the board. And the other point is you need to use the language that is used by board members. So, talk about whether you could serve on a compensation committee or not. Could you chair a compensation committee, right? And then the fourth piece is really identifying, almost doing like a relationship map. And the relationship map is, if I do want to get to this destination over here, who are the people that influence this destination? It's not always board members, right? Board members are not always the best people to speak to get onto a board. Yes, they're influential and you should know them, but they don't always hire the board, or they don't always influence the board. Sometimes it's the management consultants or any consultant, a lawyer, a banker. Sometimes it's the CEO and the CFO or the COO or the general counsel that are already talking about changes they need to make at the board level, unknown to the board. Okay. So think strategically about who you're speaking to. But one of the biggest pieces of advice I give people is just go for the people that you like and trust and who will refer you. They're your biggest champions, right? And don't judge a book by its cover. We've had people who have helped people to get onto boards that have no idea what a board even is. Okay, so, it's someone's friend, someone's husband, someone's wife, someone's next door neighbor. And they're like, well, I was just talking to someone yesterday and they told me that, they had some board positions available, or they were complaining about their board. And then the fifth one is obviously the one we talked about just now, what to avoid, is that action plan, right? Take action. If you're not putting in the work, you're unlikely to see it come back. And I interview people all the time who've been successful in getting onto boards in a very short space of time. And not one of them said, I was just sitting there and the phone rang 4 times, right? So
no.
Sometimes the phone does ring, though. Granted, we've had a lot of guests on your podcast, on mine, or we've spoken to a number of people who have said, I got a call, right? They were the right fit. But it's the minority of the people that we speak to. So just those 5 steps. I know we work on those a lot with I work on those a lot with your group, Natalie, at her C-suite. Excuse me. And so those would be the sort of steps you should think about when you're planning and when you want to get out there.
And the last thing I would say, when we talked earlier about be prepared, is that you never know where you're going to be when a conversation will present itself to you to get on a board. We've had members of our program that one of them was on a bus and she was sitting next to someone, and they were on the way to a vineyard, and you just never know who you're going to be sitting next to on the plane, on the bus, on the traveling. And so being prepared and not thinking like it doesn't matter how I appear or how I'm, what I have to say, everything matters. Once you make that decision to get on a board, it all matters because it all adds up.
Absolutely. And I think that comes with also being the type of person that is curious and open to meeting new people, right? You can sit in first class of American Airlines and not speak to anyone around you, or you can just make small talk conversation, right? Or even in economy. I've met people in economy, right? So, I think I think it's important, right, that you're always ready to have that conversation. It doesn't have to be a PowerPoint presentation, right? It just has to be, are you confident? Do you know where you're going? And do you know what you want to do? So so I think that's all we've got here today for the three things. Have I missed anything, Natalie?
No, I think we've given more than we were going to talk about. So what a bonus that you all got to hear some of the planning of what you can do.
And I think we're going to see each other this week, right? On Friday
in person.
Thrive. Tell us a bit about that conference.
Yes, we have Thrive in 25 kicking off tomorrow night. It's a women's conference here in Chicagoland. And you and I are going to be speaking on Friday, which I can't wait to do something live in person. We always have so much fun and engaging with the audience. So it's going to be a great conference, and it's kicking off really fast. It's here. We've been planning it for 11 months, so we're really excited.
Well, I hope everything goes well, and I'll see you Friday.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for dialing in. See you soon. Thanks. Bye.